You're playing touch butt with that dork in the park.
Former UFC lightweight title challenger Kevin Lee has shared details about his return to MMA. The Motown phenom retired from the sport after suffering a first-round submission defeat to Rinat Fakhretdinov in July 2023. Only one match into his second UFC tenure, Lee decided to step away from the octagon. However, echoing the trend in MMA, his retirement was short-lived. Mere months later, he declared his intentions for a comeback. Upon announcing his retirement, Lee appeared to become a free agent, and he expressed his desire to return to the UFC, even suggesting he'd participate in the Dana White's Contender Series, typically a platform for emerging young fighters. Despite his readiness to prove himself again, his proposal didn't gain traction. Lee instead fought at the Lights Out Championship in September, securing a submission victory over Thiago Oliveira. Later in the year, he was announced as part of the roster for the newly established Global Fight League. During a recent appearance on Ariel Helwani's podcast, Lee elaborated on his choice to sign with this new promotion. He disclosed having conversations with UFC matchmaker Sean Shelby about a possible return, but the UFC showed little interest in re-signing him. Even though Lee was open to competing in the Contender Series for a modest sum, the organization declined. "I really want to compete, you know," Lee explained, discussing his negotiations with the UFC. "Money isn't really the driving factor. I even suggested I'd take a fight for $5,000 on the Contender Series. I take on whoever they believe is their toughest contender. They weren't interested, and I'm not sure why. My interaction with the UFC was limited to Sean Shelby." He went on to say, "Sean told me they weren't really up for that kind of arrangement. When I spoke with Ali Abdelaziz, he confirmed that the UFC wasn't keen on having me back. I don't know why. I've been involved in some of the biggest UFC bouts, helped transition from Fox to ESPN, and I think I'm quite cooperative. But this time, I'll make sure there's no doubt about my comeback." UFC welterweight contender Colby Covington is excited about the idea of facing Michael Chandler in the octagon. Chaos recently returned to action at UFC Tampa last month, taking on emerging fighter Joaquin Buckley in the main event. Despite hoping for a title shot with a victory, Covington was significantly outmatched. After a severe cut above his eyebrow led to a stoppage in the third round, Covington attributed the defeat to what he called a DEI doctor, stopping the fight too early. Shifting his focus, he's now eyeing a comeback, calling out fighters like Gilbert Burns. However, Covington's latest target is Michael Chandler. Similar to Covington, Iron has just come back from a long break, facing defeat by unanimous decision against Charles Oliveira in November. Post-fight, Chandler expressed interest in moving up to the 170-pound division to challenge Covington. In a recent chat with Submission Radio, Covington expressed his excitement about the potential matchup with Chandler. He suggested that while he suspects Chandler might be using steroids, he still views the fight as an easy one for him. "He loves to get beat up," Covington remarked in the interview, discussing a possible fight with Chandler. "He loves to get his face smacked. If that's what the UFC wants, then I'm all for it. I hope it happens. But I don't know if it will. I think he's all talk. No action," he added. "I see myself overpowering him. He's definitely juiced up to bulk up, so 170 looks like a natural fit for him. He's like an Islam Makhachev. These guys are weight bullies. There's no reason he shouldn't move up to 170. How do I see the fight going? It's an easy one. I see me breaking his spirit. If it goes 5 rounds, he definitely won't last. I just see him quitting, like he did against Dustin Poirier." Many consider Tom Aspinall to be the fighter who could dethrone Jon Jones in MMA, but a former heavyweight champion has a different view. Cain Velasquez, who once held the UFC Heavyweight title, doubts that Aspinall would defeat Jones in a potential title unification fight this year. Velasquez has observed certain aspects of Aspinall's technique that he believes Jones will exploit. "No, I don't think he does," Velasquez said to Ariel Helwani when quizzed on whether Aspinall could best Jones. "From what I've seen, I can spot a pattern in his striking, how he moves in to attack. I'm pretty sure Jon sees it as well." Jon is meticulous. He does his research, you know. He's a master of this game. He studies and restudies. For this reason, I think he'll know exactly what to do. I don't think he beats Jon, no. While there's no official confirmation of a heavyweight showdown between Jones and Aspinall, UFC CEO Dana White confidently stated in December that the fight would definitely happen in 2025. Jones is the current UFC heavyweight champion, with Aspinall holding the interim title, both having defended their belts once. Whether this fight will materialize or if Jones might retire is still up in the air. However, if it does occur, Velasquez believes Jones will analyze Aspinall and emerge victorious, as he has against all his previous opponents. Everybody has a fight pattern, and he has one, Velasquez explained. Some hide it better than others. Aspinall has a pattern that's kind of easy to spot when he's on the attack. There's a lot involved with hiding your patterns, using feints, but when he goes for it, he goes all in. He glides in, lunges, and strikes. Not that it's not effective, because it is. Look at his success. But with someone like Jon Jones, who studies his opponents, I think he'll figure him out and win because of that. UFC lightweight champion Islam Makhachev has spoken out about his near confrontation with Nate Diaz. The two were in Las Vegas for the UFC 311 press conference last month. Makhachev is scheduled to defend his title against Arman Tsarukyan in the upcoming pay-per-view main event in Los Angeles. He previously defeated Tsarukyan by unanimous decision in 2019 in St. Petersburg, but there was no evident tension with his upcoming opponent at the press conference. Instead, the altercation involved Makhachev and Diaz's team. Diaz, who was in Vegas to support Kron Gracie in his fight against Bryce Mitchell at UFC 310, instigated the incident by throwing a water bottle at Makhachev, leading to a retaliatory response from Makhachev's team. Thankfully, the situation didn't escalate further. This incident is just another in the series of altercations involving Diaz and Makhachev's crew, dating back to 2015, when Diaz clashed with Khabib Nurmagomedov at a World Series of Fighting event. Nearly a decade later, Diaz nearly came to blows with Nurmagomedov's close ally and training partner. In a recent interview with Demetrious Johnson, Makhachev discussed the event, revealing he believed there was no animosity between him and Diaz. However, he speculates that Diaz might have thought Khabib was present, given the mask one of his teammates was wearing. Next day, they put me inside, close to the cage, and to sit with Dana, Makhachev recounted, discussing the water bottle incident at UFC 310. Dana said, "You are a troublemaker." I said, "Dana, it's not my fault. We're sitting before the fight day. I have press conference and fighters have the official weigh-in. We sit and Diaz start to show them the middle finger. Maybe, for some people it's good, but it's not our style to let that go," he continued. "One of the guys, he wear a mask. Maybe he's sick and he wear the mask. Maybe Diaz thinking it's Khabib and wanted to show him. But that day, Khabib wasn't in Vegas. He was in our country. Who knows why Diaz doesn't like Khabib? 5 or 6 months ago, I met Diaz in the elevator in the hotel, and I'd go across to me and said, 'Respect. What changed now?'" Claiming that Diaz by himself did not want any trouble by saying respect. That's it for all the MMA news for today. Please like, share, and subscribe to support the channel.